to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Hey, welcome everybody. Tom Dutta, like butter. Today is a great day to be saying the word butter because we have an amazing guest on. You're going to know his name in a moment. And, well, we're live streaming. So what is live streaming, everyone? It's the next generation of broadcasting. The old word podcast, that's gone now. Everything today is a show. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and X, formerly Twitter, live. If you're there, welcome. If you're there, you can chat with us. Put a comment or a question in the chat field. I'll be able to see it in the studio and bring it on the screen, perhaps to engage with our guest. And I want to say thank you for all of you who are supporting the Quiet Warrior Show. It's incredible. We're booking out now into the end of January, and I interview every week. And I guess you being here is what's got the show to where it is. If you can do me a favor, we're building the viewership of the YouTube channel. Find Tom Dutta YouTube and just go there and give it a subscribe. There's a little bell. You click that, and that allows you to see interviews that are coming up. So very excited, and thank you again. Well, let's get right to it. The real reason we're here today, everyone, is because, and I have a clue for you here, I brought my apron, so you'll know about that in a minute. Before I bring him on, he's quietly waiting in the green room. I'd like to read you the bio, and it's something that is incredible to me because of my passion for cooking. So Chef Michel Jacob, we call him Chef. Michel Jacob is one of Vancouver's most celebrated culinary icons. He recently retired after more than 4 decades, at the helm of the renowned French fine dining restaurant Le Crocodile. I have a story about that because I've been there many times. Originally, he's from Strasbourg, France, and he brought rich traditions of Alsatian cuisine to Vancouver. Now, everybody, you're an international audience. I'm here on the west coast of Metro Vancouver, British Columbia. But Chef created an enduring legacy since opening Le Crocodile in '83. My goodness. I think about the fact that I graduated high school in '82, and this man was actually doing something incredible just that time. His passion for showcasing the finest ingredients and authentic French techniques, it earned him numerous accolades, including Vancouver Magazine's Lifetime Achievement Award and an induction into the BC Restaurant Hall of Fame. Wow. His crowning achievement came in 2024 when he was named an officer in the Order, now, excuse my French, I took grade 12 and I'm not that fluent, Ordre du Mérite Agricole by the French government, recognizing his contributions to promoting French agricultural products and cuisine. Le Crocodile, inspired by Michelin-starred Au Crocodile, hopefully we'll talk about that, from Jacob's hometown, became a staple of Vancouver's dining scene under his leadership. And it was known for its impeccable execution of French classics. Now, my wife and I went there just weeks before the restaurant was sold, and we had several dishes. I took some pictures. It's on my Instagram feed. Absolutely incredible what he does there. Now, after his storied career, Jacobs passed the torch to his longtime friend and protege, Chef Rob Feeney, ensuring the restaurant's legacy continues. As Chef embarks on his well-deserved retirement, including travels through Europe, his influence on Vancouver's culinary landscape remains profound. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. Welcome, Chef.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. We were just talking before you came on about the fact that you went to Europe and traveling, and now that you're back home again, so welcome back. Chef, before we get into some conversations, just tell us about how you're feeling going through the change just several months ago, and now you're traveling. How are you doing?
I still sometimes get up in the morning and say, I have to go back to work. We sold the restaurant 4 months ago, so it's still very fresh. We sold it in May, so I was off during the summer, beautiful weather, daytime until 9 p.m. So everything was cool. Now it's going to start to rain, it's going to be dark at 5. I don't know how I'm going to adjust to that.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. I read somewhere in your background that you're a cyclist, or you used to do some cycling. Is that true?
Yeah, I still do. Yeah, I do about 250 miles a week on my bike, and then play tennis twice a week. Golf very badly, but I like golf.
Okay, you're going to get to know my sense of humor. When you say golf really badly, you're talking to a guy. My father, by the way, taught me to play golf with wooden sticks, and he idolized Jack Nicklaus. And my golf is maybe 130, so I think I'm worse than you.
Often when I play golf with some of my friends, I always mention to them if I would play golf like I cook, I'd be closed after 2 days.
I love that. Well, you know what's interesting in my mind as you're talking, and I know what you were running the restaurant. I can't imagine finding much time to play golf while you were in the kitchen. So maybe that's part of your next thing, right? What I want to do now, Chef, is just make a quick explanation of what we call Plato's Garden, and I'll edit and tidy this up when we release the show. So, are you ready to go into Plato's Garden to have some conversations?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, it's 100%. I like Chef already, everybody. Nobody's ever said, no, I don't want to go there. So just stand by, Chef, while I set this up. I have a little quick video, and then I'll explain it to the audience. So stand by in 3, 2, 1. All right, well, welcome, Chef, and our audience to Plato's Garden. Now, I started a doctoral degree a year ago at Middlesex University in London. There's a story behind that. But one of the things I learned, Chef, and I was taught by my professor, is that we go fast in life. As business people, myself, we don't always stop to think about all our thoughts and connect everything together. So there's some things on the screen here I just want to mention. To those watching, you'll see this. To those on the audio only, you'll listen to this. So Plato's Garden, Plato, Chef, was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece and founder of the Platonist school of thought and the academy, from the Greek word academia. That actually, Chef, was the first institution of higher learning in the Western world, which I thought was rather interesting. But here's what we're going to do. It's called the influences of context. So there's 3 areas, Chef, that we will be having conversations, and they'll go into these areas. One is macro, what was happening in the global world around you as you created your work, your career and after. 2 is mezzo, which is the sector. So in this case, we could say culinary arts or whatever you decide it to be. And 3 is micro. This is my favorite, Chef, because this is about you. And a lot of times guests come on, they're highly rated, they have lots of accomplishments, and they just talk about that, but not really about the personal things about themselves. So finally, if we tie all of this together, the idea is we'll have some deeper understanding of the great Chef Michel Jacob. So let me remove that off the screen. And we're going to get into it and just be casual having conversation. I'm going to throw a question out there. This one might cover macro, it's the global context. So I call this From Alsace to Vancouver, Shaping a Culinary Legacy. So the question we'll put out there, Chef, you were born in Strasbourg, Alsace, a region known for its rich culinary tradition. And how did growing up there shape your passion for French cuisine? And what drove you to bring those traditions all the way to Vancouver?
Well, I started liking to cook at the age 9, 10, 11. My dad wanted to be a chef, actually. My dad was born in 1930. The war started in 1940. So when the war started, he was 10-year-old. When the war was finished, he was 15, 16. At that time, there was no hotel, there was no restaurant. It took about 3 or 4 more years until everything went back to normal. So when I became a chef, my dad always used to say, you became a chef because I couldn't become a chef.
Wow.
When I started my apprenticeship, I was 14-year-old. It was the last year that you could take an apprenticeship at age 14. After that was 16. So I did a 3-year apprenticeship in a restaurant in Strasbourg, who was a 2-star Michelin. The restaurant was called Restaurant Zimmer. And at age 17, I was a cook. Because in French, you don't call yourself chef. You're not chef before you age 30, 35.
Yeah.
And I see young people here who are 18, some chefs, you're a cook. So, but that's, I I always like to cook. As I said, my dad only cooked once a week on Sundays, and then every Sunday after church, I went back home after church, and I cooked with my dad. And I do chop parsley, chop garlic, and all that. And that's how. And then when I was 14, I wasn't too good at school, and I said, "You, I want to be a chef." And 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 here I am.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I'm honored. My brain's going on journeys as you're talking. That's why this is storytelling. I'm very honored to know about your father. Tell me a bit about your dad, and I'm assuming he's obviously not with you anymore, right?
Yes, that's
And
correct. Yeah. My dad,
what was the greatest gift that he gave you? How did he shape you?
my dad was a good, clever person. As I said, he wanted to be a chef, but he couldn't. So after when the war was over, he joined the French National Railwork Company. He learned the trade and still was cooking at home as well once a week. But his career as a chef, and then at that time, you didn't change job when you were 25 or 28. You stick with what
Yeah.
you teach. So my dad was loved food. My dad was 6'3", 250 pounds, a real big boy, and
Yeah.
he loved sweets. So when I started my apprenticeship, on my day off, I used to cook at home, and he was so happy because I made dishes that he never could make.
Yeah.
So, it was really fun. And then I was here for about 4 years before he came to visit me the first time. And I used to call him at least once a week. Hello, Papa, how are you? And every single time he would say, "Is the bread better in Canada?" I said,
Oh.
"No." And he said, "What are you doing there? Come back." So, but then when he came back the first time, when he came to see me in Vancouver, he said, "Oh, now we understand why you don't want to come back." He really enjoyed the city, and you were so happy to see the restaurant as well. And then he came back about 10 times in a row, over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he was super happy with it.
Well, that's wonderful. And tell us about your mom.
My mom, my mom cooked during the week. So during the week, the ingredients were less expensive, and then on Sundays we cooked with better food, meaning we would have a leg of lamb, a nice roast chicken, some rabbit. And my mom was a my mom was a how can I say, she cooked every day. So, but she didn't cook any fancy food. She would make an omelette, she would make soups, she would make a stew, but very, very easy.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. In reading some of your works, I noted the word simplicity, and I think it's an interesting part of your career and why you became a master of what you did. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Did you live on a farm, or what was? I just want to
no,
create a visual picture
no,
for the
it
audience.
was we lived about 10 miles outside the big city, Strasbourg, in a village, and
Yeah,
obviously at that time I was born in 1955, so in the 60s, everything was like in the movies, like everything was nice and easy. There was no internet, there was no cell phone.
yeah.
Um, I had it was a really nice time to like work here.
Yeah, thank you. Life was simple. It was simplicity. We were talking, everyone, with Michelle and I before we came on live about you're turning 70 soon, and
Yes,
I was just remarking what you just said. I think is a real teaching moment for us that life was simpler. Today, you were traveling Europe. You were telling me, but we're thinking about the world, the state it's in, and with wars in Europe and things, and it's just sometimes, Chef, I've found through my life, and tell me what you think about this, but I grew up in a home where unfortunately my dad left me when I was 12. Many of my followers know my story. I love my dad. He passed away in 2018. He was addicted to alcohol, so things weren't good. And, I just remember he was in the army and his favorite dish he cooked was spam and eggs because that's what they cooked in the army. He was a great golfer too, as you mentioned, golf. But through my time when I went through a traumatic childhood, I found solace in food. So I wanted just to share something with you that my doctor at that time had 3 daughters, and I have 2 brothers. And so my dad left home. My mom wasn't doing very well. So we would end up going to the doctor's house, and they had an estate property. And I would stand in the kitchen watching these girls baking chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. And then I would go home, and I just found that maybe it's the release of oxytocin and dopamine in my brain, but I would make cookies. I was a heavy, chunky kid, so I wasn't too proud of the impact. But what happened from there, chef, is even through my career as a CEO, when I got into industry, I would go to board meetings in the US and I'd be in my hotel room getting up to shower, and I'd put the TV on the hotel on the Food Network. Throughout my life, this whole gift of food and culinary, for me, was an escape from the reality. It was passion and joy. It sounds like you've had a passion for this for different reasons.
Absolutely. And as you know, actually, when I arrived in Canada, I came in Canada in 1977 and arrived in Montreal. And I worked in Montreal for 3 years. And in 1980, I moved to Vancouver. And when I arrived in Montreal in 1977, if I would say to some group of people my age, I said, I'm a chef. You look at me, that meant we couldn't care less. They had no clue what it meant to be a chef, because at that time, a chef meaning you are bad at school and you drop school, you got a job at McDonald's or whatever, a small restaurant like this, and started the dishwasher job, and then you moved up and you became a chef. And now, as you just mentioned before with the food channel, since the food channel actually put all the chefs outside the kitchen, meaning by that now some of the chefs are like superstars. So I would have CEO here in Vancouver of large company who would call me and say, oh, what can I do for you? And I'm surprised. This person calls me and he says, Michel, I need your help. My son is 18. He watches food channel since age 10. He's not too good at school. Could you take him with you for a week to see if he has it? 20 years ago, I would never get a phone call like this, because people were ashamed to say, my son wants to be a chef, especially in North America. I'm talking in the 70s or even 80s. And now you go to a place with lots of people around you, and people say, what you do in life? I'm a chef. You have 6, 8 people who come and talk to you. Oh, I need to ask you a question. What is your favorite food? So chef right now in North America is very in.
Hey, I like that. Hey, everybody, we're with Chef Michel. We call him Chef. The chef right now in North America is very in. So all of you out there looking for maybe a career path or something, I always like to say, Michel, follow your passion. And somewhere in the early years of life, there seems to be a passion. Hey, I was just curious. You said your mom did some cooking. Was there a favorite dish from your childhood?
Hola. Yeah, again, my favorite dish we are in Alsace, so we don't cook fish because we're not next to the ocean. We have freshwater fish, but we don't really have fish. So 90% it's pork actually, and
Oh,
lamb and rabbit. So I mean, my favorite dish is because where I live with my mom and dad, we had the rabbits. So at least every 2 weeks we will kill a rabbit and I eat the rabbit.
yeah.
So I would help my dad take the rabbit out of the cage and then kill the rabbit and open him up, take all the fur out and all that. So that's great memories for me. And we will keep the blood to make the sauce with it. My dad used to make his own fettuccine, like the
Wow.
noodles.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
That's interesting to me. You said something earlier about somebody asked you is bread. I think your dad asked you is bread better here. I want to just throw this out that it's interesting because I can go to Europe. My wife's Italian, and I can eat a croissant, bread there, focaccia, whatever. I've never been to France, but I've had friends tell me that they can go there and eat the bread, and they have a perfect stomach. We come back to North America, particularly the USA, where they spray poison on the crops. There's pesticides, and then there's fortified wheat, and a lot of people, including me, get bloating and very uncomfortable. Is there something different about the food chain when it comes to
yeah, I
bread?
think the flour and the yeast is different in Europe than it is here in North America. And lots of high-end lab bakers actually here in Vancouver, they bring the flours from Europe.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. There's a little bakery down the street from where I live. I'm in Port Moody, British Columbia here, Chef. My wife and I walk there. It's about 45 minutes once a week, and we have coffee and pastries. And the chef there makes sourdough bread, all sorts of bread, but he brings in the ingredients. So it's pretty good quality. So that's fascinating. Let's move on. And first of all, I want to throw a picture on the screen. Tell me if you recognize these people.
Yeah, very well.
I like to bring me and you back into that moment, Chef, if I can, because my audience hasn't seen this. So everyone, when Chef, and this will lead us into the next question, when Chef, you announced the retirement plan from the restaurant, my wife and I went to book, and it was crazy. We had to book out weeks. And I read in an article in Vancouver magazine that after you announced retirement, there was something like 3,000 reservations made. Anyway, we were there, and you had a wonderful server for us. I had a wonderful meal. My wife had her birthday, and at the end, I was telling the chef, I have a passion for food. He said, you need to, or the server, you need to meet Chef. And I was so humbled, and I thought to myself, true thinking, Michel. I thought, he's so busy, he's not going to make time to say hi to me. And you did, and you brought us in the kitchen, and we talked for a few minutes. So just tell me what you remember about that moment and meeting people in your restaurant, what that does for you.
Yeah, that was very touching actually when I announced that I'm gonna hang up my apron. We had something like 4,000 reservations in the next 2 hours. Just
Wow.
crazy to get everything, to get everybody in. And what we didn't realize, you see, when you work every day for the past 40 years, it's just normal. Um, and then we don't realize the impact we have on people's life as a restaurateur or as a
Yeah.
chef. And we had people like you who really wanted to come and say like goodbye to me. And it was very touching. There was people that I knew for the past 40 years, and they came with their kids, and their kids had kids and all that. So we had sometimes three generations of family who came to the Crocodile. And for me, let's say you would be okay, a regular customer who comes once a month. So I say hello, thank you for coming, blah blah blah. But I don't talk much more about it with my customer. And the last few months, those people came to the kitchen, and really, it was very, very touching for me. Some had tears in their eyes and say, "You don't realize how much impact you had in our life. We had our birthdays here, we had mom and dad who now not anymore with us used to come here." So it was very touching for me to have all those comments.
Well, thanks for saying that, sharing that with you. It's interesting because they say that the weight of strong mental health. I had a brain injury in 2018. I fell on my head in a bathtub, and I recovered from that. But it's funny because I was doing the Ride to Conquer Cancer, which we were talking about bike riding, so I might tell you more about that, Chef. But I know they say in mental health, and it's a big topic, that engagement with another, engagement with somebody else is a way to developing good feelings. And so I'm honored. You're such a great man. And I just want you to know that for every dish you put in front of us and every experience, you touched thousands of people, whether you talked to us or not. And it just was an honor to actually spend a moment in your kitchen. I was more fascinated, I don't know if you remember, but trying to stay focused on you. I didn't want to insult you, but I was looking around at the kitchen because it's like, I want to stay here. I want to learn. I wish he could mentor me in this kitchen. My wife will tell you I'm trying to make my little home kitchen look like a chef's kitchen. Anyway, here's my next question. And everybody, we're in Plato's Garden with Chef here. The art of consistency in a changing world is sort of the theme here. So Le Crocodile became a symbol of consistency and excellence. And in a world where culinary trends are shifting rapidly, how do you maintain that timeless approach? And why do you believe simplicity, as you mentioned in other parts, is the hardest art to master?
Yeah. What we teach our young chef when they come and work with us at the Crocodile is to be consistent. So if you do chopped parsley, the chopped parsley has to be perfect, not so. I remember when we were about 10 in the kitchen, 10 staff. We have young chefs who started, apprentice, and then we have chef de party, sous chef. So a bit like an army in the kitchen, and a big chop, and then it goes all the way down. And doesn't matter who would talk to me. Could be my chef, could be the sous chef, could be an apprentice. I would say, did you taste it? And how is it? And he would say, it's okay. I said, no, we don't do okay food. It's good or bad. So what those chefs who work with me, who then became very successful as well, talking about David Oxford, talking about Rob Finney, about Ned Bell, and I could go on. We teach them the discipline. When you come to the kitchen, no matter if you had a hangover the next day or you didn't sleep well, whatever, you put your food in the kitchen and you're 100%, not 80% or 90%. And so we really we didn't invent anything. We Le Crocodile, we cook food that people cooked already 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's much more complicated to cook the same dish every day and to make sure it's as good as the last day. If I go to your place and let's say you make a leg of lamb and say, oh wow, Tom, that leg is tip top. In a year from now, you say it's my turn again. Come back to my house. I will cook for you. I would say, remember, Tom, the leg of lamb you did a year ago? Could I have that again? If it's as good as I remember, because it was so good, it's in my memory, I say, wow, this guy knows how to cook. Because it's very important to be consistent.
Yeah, that's very interesting because as a home chef, I call myself home chef, so I want to make sure you understand. I'm not trying to compare myself. My wife asked me once, why do you call because I have this Instagram page, chef, and I post pictures of my food, and I'm a storyteller. So what I do is you and I might interview like this. I'll then go because I live in a village where I can go to a fishmonger, butcher. I'll pick up a bunch of stuff just out of my mind, and then I'll make a dish. And I'll put it on the plate, and it tells the story of an experience you and I had. So I said to my wife, my kitchen is my home chef Michelin star kitchen. And she said, why do you call it that? And I said, because I can. So I have my own ego, so pardon me for that. There was an article called From Vancouver Magazine. I'll put it up in a minute. And I read something in there. It said, when you do something right, people will come. And I think everyone, Michel, that's what you just taught us, right? That do that dish a year later, replicate it, keep it simple, as good, and we'll keep coming back. So it doesn't happen very often in many restaurants. In fact, the menu's always changing.
But 90% of the high-end restaurants around the world, all those 3-star Michelin, if you're in France, you have the basic menu, the a la carte menu is the same for the past 30 years. You have special that you change every day, but you have people who come from Japan or Brazil or God knows where to that French restaurant because they read about one dish 40 years ago and they still make that dish. So you go to Paul Bocuse, you go to Guy Savoy, you go to Alain Ducasse. You have dishes that those guys are doing for the past 30 years. And people come from all around the world to eat that dish. You go to New York, you go to La Daniel Boulud. Daniel Boulud has a la carte, same some of the dishes since opening. And people would go there like once a month because they want that dish.
Yeah.
90% of the time, if I pick a restaurant, I mostly know already before I arrive, I know what they're going to eat.
That's interesting to me. I did a lot of learning about neuroscience when I had my brain injury, and there's this way your brain thinks, and it likes comfort. Your brain's kind of lazy, and I learned that your brain likes to go looking for what's familiar. And I've had this a lot in traveling myself. You go to the hotel reception and say, where should I go eat? And they don't give you the name of the restaurant. Sometimes they'll say, you've got to try this dish, this one restaurant. So thank you for sharing that. Let's put up a couple more pictures here. I want to just have you tell us what is this picture?
Well, so the person right behind me is Rob Finney, and then two of the other chefs. And we are starting once a year because I'm from Alsace, I'm from Strasbourg, and our main number one additional dish is choucroute. Choucroute in English is sauerkraut. So we will have 2 days of Asian menu, and as the main course, we will have a sauerkraut. So we will have about 6-7 different style of pork hocks, smoked bacon, double smoked bacon, 2 or 3 type of bratwurst and weisswurst and all that. So it's very like Germanic, obviously, because as you know, Strasbourg is only about 10 miles from the German border.
Yes.
So
Yeah, many influences from that geographic location. I put that picture up for a reason. I'm trying to weave the storyline in my head to honor you. And I saw Rob Feeney in the way to this next question in Plato's Garden, everyone. I call this the mezzo thinking. So critically thinking about the industry sector that you're in. So from apprenticeship to icon, mentoring the next generation. So I'll throw this question out. Many of Vancouver's greatest chefs, like Rob Feeney, started their journey at Le Crocodile under your mentorship. What was your philosophy in training these young cooks or chefs, and how did you balance being both their mentor and an industry icon as you are? Before you answer that, I watch a lot of cooking shows, as I told you, Michelle, and I I get scared of some of these guys who yell and scream, and I kind of wonder, coming up through the ranks, why. But tell us more.
Yeah, first of all that like yelling, when you see Gordon Ramsay on TV, that's all scripted. That's all. If I would do half of what he does, like appearing, I would be my face would be on the front page of the newspaper because people will complain and sue me.
Yeah.
So that's all for TV. In the old days, when I started my apprenticeship, obviously it was much tougher physically. Now, so that's all fine, and there is no more. People get pushed around in the kitchen. That's all finished. As far as when we talk about, I had about 7 or 8 chefs who did very well, who were very successful. And all. You could see after a week that those guys were above average. You could see them that you didn't have to push them too much to know it's going to click. So my can I say I put them on the track to make sure it's not a joke, because they were very young when they work with us. So and I make sure every day they come in the kitchen. He says focus, work. It's like an athlete, It's so what if you talk to those people, they all say the same thing. They say, what we're very strict. We don't while we work next to each other. I don't talk to the guy about the movie he saw during his day off. Don't talk about his problem at home or whatever it might be. It's go 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 go, and so they learn that discipline.
Yeah. Thank
Because
you.
kitchen where they have the radio on while there is a hockey game and a baseball cap and all that. So that obviously didn't work with us.
It's distraction. I was telling you in the green room when we were offline there that my father was a commanding officer in the British Army, and then when we came to Canada, I was 6, and I was raised very strict, almost like command and control. And today in the business community where I come from, command and control isn't always accept or workable, especially with next generation of young people. My daughter's 27, and if I talk to her half the way my dad talked to me, I don't think she'd talk to me. So I really like what you're teaching us in your style, and the part about the kitchen itself. Tell us about. I think that because I had to spend time in a restaurant for a year when I had my injury, so I was a table waiter and I got to cook in the kitchen. It was something I had to do a few years ago. That the kitchen is like a machine. And so if somebody's off their game, they're not focused. For example, I used to walk through the kitchen, and I got one day I walked through the kitchen and the chef was carrying a pot of hot water, and I didn't say behind you. And they got really upset with me and said, you must do these things, otherwise the system breaks down. So this discipline, just tell us a couple things about how you taught discipline, and if you were teaching business leaders, maybe 1 or 2 thoughts about how that might translate.
Well, in the kitchen there is etiquette. Obviously, as I said, you have the chef, sous chef, and then the demi-chef, and then it goes all the way down to the apprentice. Number one, I always told all my team to respect the dishwasher, because if you don't have a dishwasher, we have to do the dishes after. So, and some of the dishwasher are a bit checky, whatever you call them, a bit not really focused, but we have to deal with them. So it's easy for a young chef to not respect the dishwasher. So that was number one. And then as far as in the kitchen, me personally, I always told them, if I can do it, you can do it. The reason a young chef in any kitchen around the world is gonna start cold section. That means if you make some mistake, it's not going to be expensive. You just have to redo it. If you take a young chef and put him right away on the stove and he overcooks an expensive piece of meat, it's a lot of waste of money. Also, I always told my chefs, doesn't matter if you work in China, in Brazil, or in Canada, a mayonnaise is a mayonnaise, a hollandaise is hollandaise, bechamel is bechamel. So when you learn French technique,
Yeah.
French chef, it's only one way. So if I hire a new chef and I tell him to make me a hollandaise with a quite a complicated sauce, if he doesn't know how to make a hollandaise, then it's a problem. So those young chefs who work with me, they learn the basics of French cuisine. And after 3 years with me, he could work as French chef all around the world because
That's amazing.
the exact technique of French food.
Everybody, we're here with Chef Michel Jacob, former owner of Le Crocodile, an iconic chef globally. It's, there's a saying in the business community where I teach now. I used to be a leader. They say, my definition is the leader's number one job is to create other leaders. And what you've taught us there, Michel, is I'm hearing you say how your role is to develop other chefs. So that's pretty amazing to me. Let's go to another question here. Are you doing okay in Plato's Garden? I think you're having a good time. Okay. The stories are fascinating. Here is Micro. This is about you. Retirement and reflections, passing the torch, I call this. So after 4 decades at Le Crocodile, you chose to pass the reins to Rob Feeney, someone you've mentored and seen grow. So how did that decision come about? And can you tell us what kind of emotions did you experience as you handed that really your life's work over to your dear friend?
Yeah. About 2 years ago, I mentioned to some people that I think I'm going to hang up my airplane. My goal was I stop when I'm 70. So people start to know in the city, oh, Michel is going to more likely retire soon and so on and sell the restaurant. So Rob called me right away and says, I understand you might stop. So yeah, I said, oh, could you give me a chance? I would love to take over the Crocodile again. So he needed to find financing. So it took him about a few months to get the money done together. And he called me and he says, Michel, I think I have the money. I would like you to meet my people who are going to back me up. And then I met them once, met them twice, and slowly, and then it happened. So for me, I got approached by a lot of other people who wanted to buy the Crocodile because the location is, as you know, is tip-top in the city.
Yes.
So, my first choice obviously would have been Rob Feeney. Rob Feeney was not when he started, he was already 21. He was not an apprentice. He did his apprenticeship somewhere else. So he started with us as a young chef. And as you know, Rob had a restaurant in Vancouver called La Lumière.
That's right.
Lumière was the number one French restaurant in the country. He had big accolades, much bigger than the Crocodile. He was like a superstar for a while. I would go to Montreal and there was Rob on the billboard. So amazing. So Rob knows how to cook French food. It's in his DNA. I sent Rob to the Crocodile in Alsace, in France. He met my mom and dad, and so we go way back. And I couldn't be more pleased, obviously, to have Rob taking over the Crocodile, and he kept the name, obviously, on the Crocodile. I would think he kept about 30% of my food that I had for the past 40 years. And then he put his own intake. They've been open now for the past 4 months. I've been there 3 times. And the decor has changed 100%, but the food was tip-top. So maybe in, let's say, 15 years from now, I walk by and there is still a Crocodile in the cool. And,
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's interesting. I'm going to put this picture, this on the screen here. You recognize that that's from Vancouver Magazine. Someone close to you sent me the article, and it's well written. I think in the article, Rob Feeney interviewed you, and I just want to share one of the comments that was made. I think you said this. It's nice to have a write-up in a magazine. I don't need that to tell me if I'm bad or good. What do you mean by that?
Well, it means that There are restaurants who get named best new restaurant, best French, best Italian, best whatever. And
Yeah.
a year later, the restaurant closed. So, because La Vancouver is, how can I say, lots of those food critics give accolades or give stars or whatever it might be very easily. And the next year, you're completely not anymore a part of that group of high-end restaurant because it's somebody new on the block. So some of the young chefs, they get carried away. They say, "Oh, did you see, Tom? I got number one French food or number one Italian," and then they
Yeah.
get a bit scared and they start doing some promotion and you're in the kitchen every night, and the food standards go down. At the Crocodile, again, I didn't need any magazine to tell me if I was good or bad. Every night when I went to bed, I knew, let's say we had 150 people. I sent maybe one plate I wasn't happy. Well, before I went to sleep, that plate was in my mind. Gee, I shouldn't have sent that plate.
Yeah.
The customer didn't complain, but me personally, I wasn't happy.
I see.
So
That's great to hear. I think you have such high integrity as a chef because you know and believe in your food, and you have that standard. So it is rare. I've traveled the world with my career and eaten at a lot of restaurants. I see what you're saying, and I also want to share this little story about Rob Feeney. So I said this to somebody when I heard he was buying your restaurant. Back in the 2000s, I was a functional, or as a CEO, a chief executive with a large insurance company. It was an international company. I was running the Canadian part of that, and I had a board of directors in the U.S. And in that role, Michel, one of the things that was really important to me and the company is we would have to develop relationships with clients. And these clients were CEOs of financial institutions. Some of them you might know. And so I went to Rob Feeney's Lumiere for my first, what I call VIP dinner. And he had this tasting menu that went on for like 2-3 hours. We would go in there, and the experience we had was unbelievable. It was not just the food, but the service. And those great relationships with my clients were developed, I think, over years there. I must have been there at least a dozen times. I don't know if Rob will remember me, but I just wanted to say to you that having Rob step into your footsteps I think that's such a great thing. And time will tell, the changes he's making and whatnot will keep that simplicity and consistency. But I'm really excited for you. So just wanted to let you know that. I think you're the godfather of his kids, right?
correct, yeah, one of his daughters.
You're a very humble man. Just being with you here, and I'm kind of curious. I think the audience wants to know about you as a human being. So, what do you do when you hang out with his kids? Do you like to have fun and do any favorite things
Yeah, if I hang out with my chefs, with my team,
with the godchildren or your?
or the godchildren, yeah, I see them maybe every 2-3 months, and then we don't talk about food because their dad is a chef.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say when he saw cooking at home because I know what he's doing. And as far as the young chefs, they do respect me obviously a lot because I'm there every day, even 60, 65.
Yes.
And so there is lots of respect for me with my team, but I will take them out at least once a month. So we go out late at night when we finish our service at 11, and we'll go to eat some ramen and Japanese or Korean food on Robson Street. That those guys know where to go, and then maybe every 6 months on a Sunday night I will take the team out and we go to a Chinese restaurant or Japanese restaurant. I very rarely go out and eat French food because I know how to cook French food. It's not the way it should be, then I'm disappointed. So I like to test different cuisines. I like Italian food. You said your wife is from Italy. For me, sometimes people interview me and say, Michel, you would start on an island and only have one ingredient to eat for the next 2 months. What would it be? I would say pasta. I might not eat the same pasta, not every day fettuccine, whatever, but I could eat pasta every day because it's easy.
Absolutely. That was all on my mind. You've been a French chef all your life. What do you do one of the things I had on my list, I'll ask you now is, do you have a favorite restaurant or restaurants that if you thought right now I'm going to go out for dinner, whether it's local or somewhere
Yeah,
international?
I have few, obviously. Often in Vancouver Magazine, every year they ask me, what's your favorite restaurant? And I mention one or two, and then I get phone call from my friends. Oh, Michel, thank you for not mentioning me. So, so I can mention 10 different people, but I go often, first of all, as far as restaurant, I go to a restaurant where I respect the owners. And
Yes.
we have a bit the same way of thinking that I do when they cook. So he's getting old as well, but as far as Japanese, I have a lot of respect for Tojo and the Japanese chef. And then another Japanese restaurant where the owner is there every day. It's called Octopus Garden. His name is Sada. So, and then I have a lot of respect also for people who might not be in a restaurant, but they are the front of the house, like they greet as maître d' and as management and owner. So lots of respect for Umberto Menghi, who has, I remember when I came in the 90s, in the 1980s or 80s, Umberto had on, I think it was on Pacific, he had three restaurants, one next to each other, Il Giardino, Umberto, and La Cantina. One next to each other, and on a Friday, Saturday, there was a lineup to go to each restaurant. Even in France at that time, I didn't know any restaurateur where two restaurants next to each other, same owners, and busy. So, and Giardino is still a busy place. And I have also respect for another chef at Villa del Lupo, Julio Gonzalez.
Yes.
Today, I have lots of respect for David Oxford, lots of respect for Pino at Joe Pino. Then I have one of my apprentice chef who I was blown away, was one of my best food actually, that this year in British Columbia. It was called Pluvio, and it's in Eucalypt. And
Yes.
Eucalypt, and the chef is named Warren Barr, and it's super tough to cook high-end food in a place like with middle of nowhere. But I would recommend to anybody who goes on Vancouver Island to go to Eucalypt to stop and eat at this place, at this Pluvio. So when I came in 1980, the food level in Vancouver, was still way behind Toronto and Montreal. And now I would personally think that Vancouver most likely the leading city of food in Canada. There's some great new chefs, lots of invention, lots of creativity, because of our very big Asian, how can I say, Asian immigration here in Vancouver. And those Chinese or Japanese have a very high-end knowledge about food.
Yeah.
Chinese cuisine is as old as French cuisine. So all those people elevated the entire food scene in Vancouver. Like our Asian customers are very demanding. If something is not right, the plate comes back as quick as it came out. So I think Vancouver is now a very big food destination.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing some of your favorite restaurants, Chef. Everybody, teaching moments from Chef here. You use the word integrity or respect. Respect. I so like that. It's very rare to interview somebody who talks that way. I think that's such a great thing. One of the things I have a pet peeve with is the media. I think the media needs to shine the spotlight more on the culinary scene here in Vancouver. The reason why I say that is I would watch some of the cooking shows, Food Network's media, and watch them talk about restaurants. They would go to Toronto and Montreal. Don't always see what I want to see about Vancouver, and I agree with what you said about it being a great place. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Vancouver, if let's say it's Friday night, say, what should we eat? There is about 10 different styles of cuisine that you can pick now to eat Greek food,
That's
Ethiopian,
amazing.
Japanese food. In my village, when I grew up, there was 4 restaurants, but they all cook the same thing. So
That that's such an obvious thing, and you said it, and I'm glad because I wanted to share with you that my wife and I took for the first time after COVID, we traveled and we decided to stay home and do a staycation, they call it. So we rented a hotel in Vancouver, actually Le Soleil, which is French based, and we decided to make it a culinary experience. So we went to 6 restaurants in so many days, and the ones you mentioned, Umberto's, many of those we went to. And I'm going to recommend to anybody seeing this that don't leave Vancouver, stay in Vancouver and go and experience what we have here.
we had, especially on the weekends for the past 40 years, 50% of our customers on a Friday, Saturday were people who came from Oregon or Washington.
Really,
The drive, and as you know, with the dollar rate, the way ahead of us as far as the value, and they would stay in a hotel for 1 or 2 nights, and then they would go back on Sunday night. So lots of US people on the weekends are in Vancouver
that's very cool.
from the home.
That's very cool. Just a side thing came into my mind. Do you think the plate look, the size of the portions they serve in the U.S. is different than here?
In some of the high-end restaurants, it's like everywhere in the world. But in the US, it's still a big, can I say, people love to go to those steakhouses.
Yeah,
Super expensive. And one person with a half cow, they weigh a 16-ounce ribeye, who, as you know, red meat is not too good for you anymore. But uh, my son went to university in Washington for 4 years, so I used to go to Seattle every month. So I knew all the steakhouses, and everything was tip top. But the food is so big. I agree with
it
you.
is.
That's for the baked potatoes kilo. It's,
Yeah, I wanted to ask an expert. Thank you for confirming what I saw. I wanted a little experiment, everybody. If you go to Starbucks, I'm going to, not promoting Starbucks, but go into a Starbucks, for example, in the U.S. and go into one here and look at the food that's there and the portion sizes. I used to know a food scientist, Michel, I can't mention his name, very credible in the U.S., and he said they've been working on the food guide pyramid and plate look because obesity is a big issue, but the size and quantities, we only need. I had my boss, who's an American, come for dinner here with me. Took him out to a restaurant, and he said, "Where's all the food?" because there was this much on the plate. Let's go to a couple more questions, and then we'll move to wrapping up here. COVID was a difficult time, and just tell us about the hardest part of that for you when you were with Le Crocodile. How did you work your way through that?
That was very sad, actually, to close the restaurant for 2 months, 1 year, and then 2 months again the next year.
Wow.
But as far as financing was concerned, we had no problem because we were open already at that time over 35 years. And we had no more bank loans, no more. So that aspect was fine. I felt very bad for those people who opened a restaurant 2, 3 years before COVID, which still had lots of commitments money-wise to the bank and paid the loan back and the rent. So there are lots of restaurants closed. And then obviously there were some restaurants who were between us, they were bad. And then they had to close. And then he blamed COVID. But I said, no, you were bad before COVID. So, but our problem then personally was staff-wise. When staff are off for 2 months, then they find another job. And being a chef is quite demanding. You work when people have fun. You work New Year's Eve. You work Christmas. You work Mother's Day. You work. So you don't really have a real life like everybody else. And you work until 11 o'clock or midnight every night. So lots of people changed jobs, went to landscaping, real estate, or whatever. And when the government told us to reopen, we called our staff back. And about 50% of the staff didn't come back.
Wow.
Um,
That's
so it's a problem.
That's hard. That's hard. I mentioned to you I had to work for a year in a tap house in North Vancouver. They had a Napolitano oven and things. We had the same issue there. The government subsidies were so good during COVID, I was being told by staff that some of them for the wages we were paying. Would it be fair to say that because after COVID you came back in the restaurant, that a lot of the brand or the the value of your restaurant was created over the years, and so COVID was just a little blip. But you came back because you had a lot of loyal customers. Would
Correct.
that be a big part of that? Would you say?
100%. And
Yeah,
people also, they were happy to go out again.
yeah,
So, yeah.
for sure. Let's talk about life beyond the kitchen. I'll just throw this out there. You've recently obviously traveled to Europe. You can talk to us about that, where you went if you want. But what has the time away from the kitchen taught you? And I know it's just been a short bit. And how do you think these experiences will influence the next chapter? What are you thinking at this point about the next journey, if any?
Yeah, it's very fresh. Sometimes in my mind, I still think I have to go back to work. Uh, but when like I like to stay fit, so if it's raining and I cannot bike, I will go for a walk. So if I work on a Friday night at 8 o'clock after dinner, I'll go for a walk for a 6-8 miles walk
Yeah,
around the city to get some air, and I walk next to a restaurant window who's busy and all that stuff, and I look inside. I'm envious. I say, wow, you guys are so lucky because being a chef is everybody wants to be a friend of a restaurateur because we sell good times. We make people happy. We put people together, family,
yeah,
friends, and then we cook for them, and then be happy to eat our food. So I'm still very envious when I go inside a restaurant as a customer now. Um, I say, wow, I would love to be still a part of the team to make those people happy.
yeah,
Um, as far as yeah, I'm more like, yeah, I've been asked to do some cooking demonstration or some stuff, but
yeah,
I'm not gonna open another restaurant. I'm 70 next year. I have 5 or 8 more years so I can really push, where I can
yeah,
travel, bike and tennis, whatever. So people always ask me, Michel, why do you sell the restaurant? And you said, no, let's say no, it was my way.
yes,
Because I wanted to. I didn't sell the restaurant because I was tired or I'm sick or because business was bad. It was my decision. So every morning when I get up, I'm happy about it. I'm happy that I finish on the top, and I'm happy, obviously, that Rob took over the Crocodile, and then the name is still going to stay in town in
yes.
Vancouver. So
Yep. I'm gonna put just that photo I had up there for those who see. I this was such a great thing to juxtapose you in the kitchen and then someone close to you sent me that other photo preparing for the show, and I thought what a great photo of you, now maybe making some time for yourself. I want to just use this moment to honor you with a thought that I have that came from my experience in business. That uh, I have a friend who's a lawyer and he's an employment lawyer, and he sat down. I was downsized from a C level career, and it was pretty hard. This was a long time ago, and he said, Tom, he said, I see clients, executives every day, and he said many of them would love to trade places with you. And I was very confusing, Chef. And I said, tell me what you mean. He said, because he said the first thing that most guys do after they leave a career or something is they go right back to what they always only knew. And he said, take some time, enjoy your life, find your passion. You might go back to do some things related. And so it's just wonderful to see you taking time to travel and for a well-deserved break from what you did. I don't think we've heard the last from you, sir. I honestly don't think so. I When you said teacher, I want to share that there's a fellow who has a YouTube channel. His name's Chef Jean Pierre. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but I might send the link to you. And his mom's Italian, his father was French, and he was a chef for many, many years in America. And he decided to start a school teaching chefs, and then he started his YouTube channel. He's got 2 million followers, and I watch him all the time because I'm learning from him. I think you would make a great teacher, and so I kind of hope that sometime we see you teaching us. Let me tell you that in preparing for the show, I were asking some of my friends, if you were to ask Chef anything, give me a couple things you might ask. And most of these people have passions for food. Just really quickly, how do you clean a cutting board? What do you teach for cleaning a cutting board? Is there a best way?
Soap and water.
Soap and water.
Yeah.
You hear all sorts of things like use chlorine and whatnot. So that's interesting. When you make an omelet, somebody has said don't heat the pan, put the butter in first, then heat the pan. Is there a magic way to making an omelet?
In old days in France in the 60s, 70s, when you were a young chef, and when you started to apply to a restaurant, the chef would say, "Make me an omelet." And
Wow.
if you can make an omelet properly, you get a job. So omelet is very complicated because when it's finished, you want it to have like a shape of a cigar, and the omelet has no brown. We call it. Has to be wide almost the omelet.
Yeah. Interesting.
When you finish it. So to cook an omelet, it's funny. I'm sure you know this person called Thomas Haas, who is a pastry chef. So every time he comes to Crocodile, every time he says, "Michel, let's make an omelet together. I want to learn how to make a proper omelet." So omelet is funny because omelet is complicated because it looks easy, but it's complicated.
Thank you. I mean, there's so many more I could ask you, but we're running out of time. One of the things I struggle with is what do I need in my kitchen for a gear or supply, or things. I have so many gadgets and machines, and I think that's something maybe another time we talk to you, we'll get that from you. Go ahead.
There are lots of, and as you know now, for the past 20 years now, people like you who love to cook at home. So again, 35, 40 years ago, if you say to a guy. If a guy would say to another friend, "I love cooking," guy looked at you and said, "Are you sure you're okay?" And now lots of men cook. Like 90% of the guys I know who are not chefs at all, who are lawyers or whatever they might be, and they love to cook. So on the weekend, they're going to go to the family market, they buy the ingredients, go back home, have a glass of wine, start cooking. And then the next day, they invite people over. And I always say to them, because they think now they are chefs, but I always say, there is one thing. Let's say you invite me at your house and you make a soup. Soup is a bit weak. So I said, "No problem, Tom, the soup is fine." Now if you say to me, "Michel, the soup you're going to eat, it's going to cost you $15. Well, it's a big difference now. Now I might not like the soup. So it's one thing to cook for free for your friends, to be a chef and make people pay for your food. It's a big margin.
Absolutely. That's incredible. I would have a dream one day just to be able to be standing in a kitchen and cooking beside one of your team. That would be on my bucket list. On that note, I have my apron here, and I got this in 2000. So again, one of the things I did is I went to the I hope I can say this, the Pacific Institute of Culinary Arts in Vancouver by Granville Island. I think you know it. And I used to run CEO peer groups. So one of the things I did at that time with my corporate work was I would bring 12 CEOs to that place. So we all went there and we were taught in the kitchen how to cook. We cooked our own food and then they served it. And for 3-4 hours, everybody drank and ate. And it was just a wonderful experience. I learned just then how hard it is to be consistent, as you said, and discipline in the kitchen. So you're touching on my heart there. Chef, it's been such a wonderful conversation. We're going to wrap up with a couple things I want to do to honor you. And then before I let you go, I have one final thought to give you the last word. So on that note, let me just read from you on my paper here. I'm going to put another camera on the screen. That's my camera in my studio. So as you talk or I write words down, I call these leadership words. So I just want to put something on my other screen here for a minute. So just bear with me, Chef. Here we go. So I've been writing words down, and I want to honor you with these words. These will be part of the show as your legacy. So the first one is legacy. For building and sustaining the iconic restaurant, Le Crocodile, and then shaping Vancouver's culinary scene. You are a legacy. The second one is mentorship. And everything we heard from you about training and creating the next generation chefs, I don't think you quite realize how important that is, so thank you. The third one is resilience. Chef, I mean, I had to work in a restaurant and be on my feet for 8 hours. You're a hero, man. Then if you have a tracker, track your steps in that shift, 18,000 or so. But you are resilient. And you look like you're in good health, which is remarkable as well. Number 4 is tradition. And this one, because of the French cuisine, the Alsatian roots, how you maintain some of that tradition. Number 5 is passion. You're a humble man, you're a great man, and it comes through all throughout the interview. So congratulations, Chef, on being such an amazing leader in your profession. And now I want to honor you with an award. And so I'm hoping that at some point we can meet up and I can give this to you, get a photo. Have you ever heard of challenge coins before?
No.
Well, next time I ask you that, you'll say, yeah, Tom told me about challenge coins. These were created in World War I, and I'll just read you what comes with it. So you're going to get this award. And so the history of the challenge coin, Chef, surfaced during World War I era. Your father might have even known about this. The practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces. Carrying them at all times and presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation with that unit resulted in a number of consequences. The most popular consequence, Chef, was if you didn't have your coin, you bought a round of drinks or maybe dinner. Today around the world, you can ask anyone about challenge coins if they know it. First responders, even Alcoholics Anonymous, every major organization has some form of these. And so I had this made when I started the show because I remember saying, I want the 1% of people in the world who have dedicated their life, made an impact, and changed the world in some way. It's hard to get on my show because it's a high bar. This is the front of the coin. They're hand-painted and crafted, so that is the actual show itself. But the back, when you get it, you can see detail, is the illustration of what we call the Hero's Journey narrative by Joseph Campbell's work about story, and where somebody goes as a seeker on a journey to find who they are, comes back and tells the story, and you do it through your work and your food. So I want to just congratulate you on becoming a quiet warrior today. Congratulations, Chef.
It's a great honor. Thank you.
Give you a little cheap applause there. Hit my button. I did a show the other day and I hit the wrong one, and it was something like so a little visual issue with my vision today. So yeah, I'll follow up afterwards. I'd love to somehow meet and want to get this to you, but also get a photograph.
Maybe you want to cook together.
You know what? I'm almost in tears. Yes, I'd like to do that. I'll work that out with you. That would be a lifetime experience for me. So thank you. We'll make that happen. Gosh, you got me emotional there. I didn't think that was going to happen. On that note, I'm going to leave you with the last question here. Say something about this, that I call this legacy beyond the plate. Chef, when you look back at your career and the impact you've made, both in Vancouver and globally, what do you hope the world will remember about you and Le Crocodile? And when you're done with this world, what do you hope the culinary landscape will look like, influenced by everything you've taught us?
Cool.
Yes.
Good question. You know, my legacy is people look back at the Crocodile in 10 years from now, 20 years, and maybe not here anymore. And they just say, oh, this French guy who opened a restaurant for 41 years was there every day, never took a day off. Before COVID, 6 days a week, only off on Sundays. 5 lunch, 6 dinner, every day. I was invited thousands of times. Michel, I got hockey tickets, this and this. You know, I have to go to work. So it's just again, like you do. It's just hard work, and you know, as far as the new generation of chefs, you do work hard too, because it's a bit of a rat race now. There's so many restaurants compared to before. So hats off to all those young chefs and the future young chefs, because it's not going to be easy to be busy every night. Lots of competition. And the last thing also, you don't want to be, you know, the Crocodile was a real restaurant where you find all around the world, in Milan, in New York, or whatever. It was a real restaurant. And you don't want to be in. So for young restaurateurs, the last thing you want is to be in place, because if you're in, you're out. Meaning in a year from now, somebody else is more in. So you have to believe in yourself and believe in your food. You know, let's say open a French restaurant, it's not busy. Somebody might say, Michel, why don't you try to change cuisine or be Italian? No, I'm French. What I cook, I know it's going to be good.
Thank you.
Yes,
Well, everybody, come back and listen to this part of the show, Teaching Moments from Chef. If you're in, you're out. Believe in yourself, believe in your food. Hey, man, you should be a motivational speaker. There's a lot in you that I think you could tell the world just by standing on a stage. I actually envision you maybe with your chef outfit and a hat and a wooden spoon and standing on stage and on your pulpit. But fantastic. Chef, thank you for doing this. It's been an honor, and wow, what a lesson you gave us. And we'll see you again soon, and thank you.
Thank you. You've been a great host. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. And don't go away. We'll keep you on there for a moment.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay, stand by. I'm just going to take us offline. We're still online, Chef, so just give me a moment.